You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
All right, folks. Well, you know what that sound means. It's Friday night, which means it's time for Robinson and Wright. I'm Rick Robinson, one half of the crew. He's Dan Wright, the other. And how are you this evening, sir?
I'm good. Been sitting here all week watching my area get destroyed. But other than that, everything's great.
I know we're doing radio, so I can't really say that I could see air quotes, but I have a feeling I heard air quotes around great there a couple of different times. So I'm assuming that was a little bit of sarcasm. But yeah, so for those of you who don't know, he's right in the middle of the crap storm currently going on in the South. So yay, fun times for that.
Yeah, and apparently there's protests going on in Atlanta tonight too, and my actual hometown of Mooresville, little tiny Mooresville, North Carolina, had its high school football game postponed tonight because our historic downtown district has a protest going on.
Nice.
It's really not doing anything to really help matters, I don't think. But, so far from what I've heard in Mooresville, it's at least peaceful. I hope it stays that way. It's gotten a little rowdy in Charlotte again tonight.
Well, the interesting thing is watching all this unfold in Charlotte, there's a similar incidents going on it's far from me, but in the grand scheme of things, really not. Tulsa, which is about an hour and 45 minutes. Well, actually, from where I'm at now, probably closer to about 2.5 hours. They actually have had a shooting that I would say for the first time is probably one of the ones where I'm scratching my head going, I really don't understand why this happened or what the cop was doing. So much so that the DA there has already brought charges. First-degree manslaughter has already been pressed. She's out on a $50,000 bond. But the funny thing is, where the shooting looks really, really questionable, and it's not just angry people saying, well, he had a book or whatever the story is for Charlotte. In Tulsa, they're actually getting along. They're getting their point across that, this is not cool. Something definitely went sideways here. But they're not looting. They're not destroying things. They're just actually doing what these people claim to be doing, which is supposed to be peaceful protest. When you're having a race riot, by definition, you cannot call it a peaceful protest. The definition of riot in and of itself involves the word violence. So the fact, and this is coming from somebody with a law enforcement background, so I'm just going to say this. The fact that we keep letting, in these towns, people destroy things, burn things, loot things, and blow up cars and pull people out of cars and beat the crap out of them, that annoys me, because those are not protesters. Those are people that in and of themselves are breaking the law and doing things, in some cases, almost as bad as the very thing that they're supposedly protesting. So why the law enforcement in that area continues to sit on their hands, I really don't know.
Well, and it's funny with all this that goes on in these cities. There's a statistic I saw that says 70% of the arrests for the violence are arrests of people that aren't from the state that it's happening in.
Well, no, and that's true too, but that's because what winds up happening is there are these groups that are that are kind of like the community organizer groups that Obama used to work with, but they're not community organizers, they're protest organizers. So they will come in from out of state, get things organized, and it's supposed to be a peaceful protest, but what winds up happening more often than not is it winds up being exactly what we've seen in Charlotte and Ferguson and all the other places where things have just gotten completely out of control. And again, I'm not saying that somebody needs to swoop in and declare martial law, but why are we going to keep letting people destroy businesses? What purpose does that serve? We have watched people getting pulled out of their cars and beaten to bloody pulps, all because these people are angry. What purpose does that serve? We've seen people on Twitter giving advice to people in that situation have their account suspended. I've seen today, from a paper that I'm actually a freelancer for, put out an article that there was a baseball player that was suspended for making anti-BLM statements, but the football player that's kneeling for the national anthem, nobody's got a problem with that. I'm so tired of this double standard. I'm so tired of this, well, we can call it a protest and you don't have a right to tell us how to protest. Yes, I do, because when you start causing harm to others and and you start destroying physical property, that's not a protest any longer. That is vandalism, assault and battery, and about a litany of other charges that I could probably list off in about 2 minutes if I really wanted to stop and think about it. So why we keep allowing these things to happen, I don't understand. Because here's the problem. They are understanding now that this works. And all we're doing all the time this happens is giving them the media attention that they so want so badly, because in their mind they feel like the country owes them something. They feel like they have been slighted, when the simple truth is most of the things that they're angry about happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago. And yes, bad things happened in this country hundreds and hundreds of years ago, just like they happened pretty much everywhere else in the world hundreds and hundreds of years ago. But we were the first country to stand up and say no more. So all of these people that are kneeling to the national anthem, you should be standing even taller to the national anthem, because this country is the one that decided to make you free and treat you like a person. You may not think it does, but the truth of the matter is it does. Yes, there are bad people in every profession. There are people that should have never put on a badge and never put on a uniform. But it doesn't change the fact that 98% of the cops that go out and do their jobs every day are doing it because they believe it's the right thing to do. It doesn't change the fact that most of these people that are standing there watching you destroy things would much rather be doing anything but sitting on their hands, but they can't because of the orders that they're being given. And it doesn't change anything that all of you people that are trying to say that we're doing this because of the fact that life is not fair for the black American, the fact that you're doing this is proving the point to everyone else who's saying the exact opposite of what you want to hear. Because it's your behavior that continues to make us look at you and say, what the hell is the matter with you? You're tearing up your own town because of an injustice. Why don't you do something useful because of the injustice? Just like I said to all these football players that have millions of dollars that are kneeling to a damn national anthem. If you want to do something, put your freaking money where your mouth is. Quit tearing stuff up. Quit making all these magnanimous gestures. Quit doing something just to make sure that your jersey goes to number one in your team store, and actually do something about the problem. How hard is that?
You're exactly right. Colin Kaepernick is going to sit or kneel for the national anthem. The man has 2 rooms in his house dedicated to his shoe collection. Am I supposed to feel like he's oppressed? He has been given the greatest gift that anybody could be given, the opportunity to get a great education paid for and move on to a job running and throwing a ball, making multi-millions of dollars to do it. And he's going to sit and not honor the country that gave him that opportunity. Now, here in Charlotte yesterday, the Bank of America Corporate Center and all of its outlying buildings, and the Wells Fargo Center and all of its outlying buildings had to be closed. Tens of thousands of employees did not work yesterday. The Epicenter was closed, which houses nothing but retail and restaurants. All of those people who are paid sat home and didn't make any money yesterday. The businesses didn't make any money, and they had to pay to clean everything up because thugs threw trash cans off of the 3rd floor of the Epicenter onto people and broke windows and everything else. What is that accomplishing? It's accomplishing everybody else going, you're a bunch of idiots. That's what it's accomplishing. Yeah,
And
I guess I said my piece.
Yeah, well, I mean, you pretty much nailed it. I mean, because everybody watching it from the outside is looking at this going, why do you guys keep doing this? What purpose is it serving? All you're doing is hurting yourselves because you're damaging your town. And no, I'm not saying go do it in somebody else's town. I'm just saying in general, the whole thing is a really bad premise because you think that by tearing things up and stealing TVs and walking out with whatever else you can carry under each arm, you think you're making things better when in reality you're not. You're not solving a single problem. All you're doing is making the rest of the country look at you and go, And you guys wonder why everybody's afraid to be around you, but then you gripe when they're afraid to be around you. Your behavior is what is teaching other people's behavior.
Like I mentioned, the Bank of America Corporate Center. We're not talking about a little 5-story building. 60-story building closed yesterday. A 60-story building. How many employees does a 60-story building and all of its outlying buildings employ? All those people off work yesterday because of this.
No, exactly.
It's not, if you want to have a peaceful protest, have a peaceful protest. If it had been a peaceful protest, all those people would have been back at work yesterday. No, let's bust windows. Let's throw trash cans off of third floor balconies. Let's do everything. Let's bring in all of our four-wheelers and our motorbikes and tear up all of the public property with them so that now all the taxpayers have to pay for that. That's not helping your cause. It's not doing a thing for your cause. It's making everybody sit back and go, wait a minute, this is the mentality that is causing the problem to begin with.
Yeah, the simple fact that there is a segment of our population that thoroughly believe that they are above the law and don't have to follow rules. Everybody talks about the 1% being that way, and a lot of them are. A lot of the rich folks, they find their own ways to not have to follow the rules and not have to follow the laws. But there's another segment of the American community that feels exactly the same way. And no, it's not just relegated to the black community, but the black community is the one that gets the majority of the press for it. And why is that? Because it sells. Unfortunately, that's what the media is anymore. It is not about bringing people the news. It's about selling them the news. And that's where we started going sideways. There was a time when the media was run as a not-for-profit thing. It didn't matter how much money it made because that wasn't why people were doing it. As long as they could pay their bills and as long as they could live comfortably, that was all they were concerned with. But now we've gotten to the point where everything that we ever touch has to make $1 million. It doesn't matter if you can just pay your bills anymore. It doesn't matter if you can just live comfortably anymore. You have to make $1 million. And the only way to make the news make money is to make it sensational. So anything that will make the news sensational becomes a part of the news. And now that we have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week news cycle, it's become this monster that has to be fed. Otherwise, people lose their market share. They lose their ratings. Now we have news channels that are moving to little YouTube snippets to boost their ratings. So you can see the same things over and over and over again. And if you want to go look at them, all you got to do is go to their YouTube channel and you go pull it up and you can watch the same horrendous video over and over and over and over and talk about it ad infinitum. But the problem with that is when we continue to have the media do nothing but focus on the negative in this country, that is part of the reason why we are where we are today. And we're going to talk about that in the second half of the show. But I want to move because at this point we're already getting really close to the bottom of the hour. We've got about 12 minutes till we got to take a break. I want to move the topic a little bit, still in Charlotte, but I want to talk about this whole did they plant the gun scenario. I'm going to let you take lead on that, and then I have some things that people may not know since I'm actually kind of familiar with this line of work. So,
okay, well, we have this video from a cell phone that's held upright, and there's clearly a gun on the ground, and the argument is that the cops placed the gun. Well, the gun has been found to have I don't know whether you call him a victim or a perpetrator, his fingerprints and his DNA on the gun. But the argument is that the cops planted the gun. And then the argument becomes, well, the cops planted the gun, and then when the gun went into evidence, they took the body in and they put the fingerprints on it, they put the DNA on it. I mean, and really, are we to this point? Are we to this point that when somebody doesn't comply and they get out with a gun and they get shot by the police, to be honest with you, 75% of the reason a cop carries a gun is to protect himself, not to protect the public. And so these cops, what are they supposed to do? I mean, Geraldo Rivera last night on the news was saying, we need to teach cops to use their tasers. Well, you know how close you need to be for a taser? I'm going to tell you what, if you have a taser and I have a gun, I'm going to win. I mean, where do we go with this? Do they want us to just disarm the cops? I mean, this isn't England where there's not many guns. This is the United States where there's lots of guns and lots of illegal guns. Where do we go from here? Every time somebody gets shot, especially if that somebody happens to be African American, every time an African American gentleman, person, whoever gets shot by the police, it's a problem now. Where's the outrage for the 3,000 plus that have been shot in Chicago? There's no outrage on that. It's just on the rarity when it's a police shooting. And like I said, fingerprints, DNA on a gun. That right there, that's all the evidence you need. That's my take. That's my take on what's going on here in Charlotte right now.
So you hit on a couple of interesting points. I'm going to back up and talk about something because you specifically asked, are they wanting to disarm the cops? So let's take a look at the left's narrative when it comes to guns. They don't think private citizens should have guns. They think only police officers should have guns. They've made that argument now for nearly a decade. And those of us with common sense say that argument makes as much sense as saying that you shouldn't keep a fire extinguisher in your home because you can call the fire department. That argument doesn't hold water, but to a liberal, it holds water. And those two are not even in the same ballpark. So they think when we make that argument, we don't make any sense. But to a logical person, it's the exact same argument. So then you ask, are they wanting to disarm the police? Think about it for a second. They already don't want us to have guns, and they're doing everything they can to get us to the point where we can't have guns. So when they've made that happen, what happens when they make the public in general distrust the police? The police will be the next to be disarmed because they do want it exactly what you just talked about. They want us to be like Great Britain or Australia. They want as few guns as possible in the hands of people that can do anything about the crazy crap that they're doing on a daily basis, and that's the whole truth of it. So this, in a lot of ways, in my estimation, is being planned, and it's being carried out in ways that we don't see all the stuff behind the scenes. In my opinion, it's a lot like all the things that started to try to come out about what was really going on in the 80s, in the 90s, but there were too many other distractions, like Bill Clinton throwing a bunch of rockets at an aspirin factory and supposedly having sex in the White House or getting a blowjob, but a lawyer wasn't smart enough to plead the fifth. Come on. I mean, look, at that point, he's a freaking lawyer. Yes, he's an idiot lawyer because he was disbarred, but he was still smart enough to stand in front of Congress and say, look, you and I both know this is a private matter between myself and my wife, and it doesn't need to be discussed. But instead, he fell on his sword. Why did he fall on his sword? Because the same day that he threw missiles at an aspirin factory, the truth came out about the fact that the Reagan administration, mainly run by Bush 41, was actually selling a lot of the drugs that were hitting the streets through the CIA to fund the Iran-Contra war. I think in a lot of ways this is the same thing that's going on here. And I know nobody wants to talk about that, but it's one of the only things that makes sense. Our government no longer has our best interests at heart. They have not for a very, very long time. So we're not really paying attention to what's going on. Yes, there's plenty of blame to go around, and I'm not saying it's entirely the government's fault. But the simple fact of the matter is they are using all of this as a distraction. Even if they're not behind it pulling the strings, they're following an Alinsky playbook, which is never let a good crisis go wasted. So every time there's a chance to put this stuff to bed, the government finds a way to make it worse. A la Obama stepping in, a la somebody calling for more gun control, all the little things that get everybody mad and get everybody divided and start talking and yelling amongst themselves again. But the thing with all of this, you mentioned another thing about the gun. Okay, so the gun has his DNA, likely from the blood. It also has his fingerprints. So I want to know, same thing you asked off air, how did someone plant a gun when there's people recording the thing the entire time? Second of all, for those of you who don't have any type of work in forensics or don't have a law enforcement background, a lot of people don't know how hard it is to actually get fingerprints on a weapon. Because in TV shows, they make it look really, really simple. They dust the grip for prints, and all of a sudden, voila, you got the bad guy. Guess what? Most grips don't even allow you to transfer prints. Guess what? Most of the gun oil that people use to clean their weapons on a regular basis, it destroys fingerprints. You know the 2 or 3 places you can usually wind up finding a fingerprint? One, inside the slide, because, everybody's got to clean it once in a while. Usually they'll leave at least 1 or 2 prints behind. On the magazine itself, or on a shell casing. That's where prints are found. So the fact that these people are trying to say that they did all of this, planted a gun at the scene, got his blood, got his fingerprints on it, even after the fact, it would have been nearly impossible to put a dead guy's fingerprints where they needed to be for them to be able to transfer the prints and actually have it show up in evidence.
Absolutely. And living here and knowing the police department and having friends that are on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg force, it is a very, very reputable force. I mean, there's very little, if close to none. There's no problems in the police force. You rarely hear about anything. I think there was something like 8 years ago, I remember that there was something with a detective and something went south. And that's the only thing that I can really think of that I've heard that there was a problem with our police force. They're well paid, they're well equipped, and everybody I know that works for the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department is happy. It's not a dirty police force. I mean, you had on that scene, I think there were something like 6 to 8 police officers on that scene. You really think all 6 to 8 police officers were in cahoots to frame this guy? I mean, it makes no sense at all. It really doesn't. And here in my hometown, Mooresville, I know plenty of the cops here too. I mean, in this area, there really isn't a problem. The police forces are well funded. The police officers are well taken care of. There's nothing corrupt going on around here at all. There isn't. And I can guarantee you right now that there's a police officer, administrative leave, that's sitting there with his family going, freaking out. His life is getting ruined. Nobody wants to shoot anybody. Nobody. I'm a gun owner. I'm a gun carrier. I do not want to shoot anybody. I know what it's going to do to my life, but if my life depends on it, that's what's going to happen. Nobody, no cop I know wants to shoot somebody. Not a single cop I know. And nobody understands that mentality. Nobody wants to shoot somebody. Nobody in our armed forces wants to shoot somebody. But sometimes you have to. That's the way it is. If it's to protect your life or to protect the life of somebody else, that's the way it is. You don't want to do it, but you have to. And nobody gets that mentality. They think the cops are out there going, I can't wait to pull my gun and shoot somebody. That's not the way it is. Most cops don't ever pull their weapon. Most cops in this country don't ever have to pull their weapon. And an even higher percentage never have to fire it in the line of duty. And they don't want to. They don't want to.
I mean, no, you're exactly right. I actually am friends with police officers who are getting to the point where they're about to retire. They've put over 20 years in. And a lot of them that I know that have been in for a long time, they're getting out because of the change in public perception. But most of them that are still leaving are leaving with never having fired their gun on duty unless it was at the training range. That's it. They shoot at paper. Most of the cops in this country never even have to shoot at anything other than paper. But because of this small group that and you're right, there's this perception, and I think unfortunately it has a lot to do with TV and movies, because everybody thinks that everybody that ever pins on a badge is looking to be the next Crockett or Tubbs. Nobody that pins on a badge that's there for the right reasons even wants to make a name for themselves. They're just there trying to make the world a safer place. They're there to try to help their community or a community that they work for if they're not able to get on at the police force in the area they live in. And most of them are doing it for the right reasons. But again, I understand that there are people in every profession that shouldn't necessarily be there. But to continue to lambaste an entire group when most of them are there for the right reasons, and if anything happens to you, you're one of the first ones to call for their help. That's what keeps running through my head with all of this, with all the protests and everything else, was just about, what was it, a week and a half ago when somebody that was fairly high up in a local Black Lives Matter movement somewhere was robbed, and the first thing he said was, we need more cops?
Exactly.
I mean...
Exactly. Just in Charlotte the other night during the protests, I posted the video on my Twitter account. I mean, what does a white kid in a parking garage have anything to do with a cop shooting? Yet, he gets bum rushed by 10 people, punched, thrown to the ground, his pants ripped off, his wallet stolen, and beat up in the middle of a parking garage. And you know why? Not because he's a cop, because he's white. He was just walking through a parking garage. How does that even translate to the problem that you even think is going on? How does this all translate? I don't understand it. I don't understand the mentality at all.
No, I mean, I don't either. But at this point, we have hit the bottom of the hour, so we're going to have to take a really quick break. When we come back, the phone lines are going to be open. I'm actually noticing we already have a caller on the line, so you'll be the first one when we come back on. So I will we'll get back to you as soon as we take the break, but we've got to pay some bills. When we come back, we're going to change gears. We're going to talk about the big shakeup with Ted Cruz today and give those of you that are listening the opportunity to call in and give us your opinion too. But of course, we'll also have lots of opinions of our own. We will be right back. This is the Robinson and Wright Show when you're listening to us live on KLNRradio.com.
I'm on the radio station, touring around the nation, leaving the scene of devastation.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
All right, folks, we are back. We are live right on KLRNradio.com. You are listening to Robinson and Wright, and as promised, we do have a caller. It looks like it's actually Jess from Jess's POV who decided to call in and weigh in on the Ted Cruz debacle. So I'll just go ahead and let you start off. What exactly are your thoughts on the fact that he decided to endorse Donald Trump today?
I was kind of watching this, and I don't focus on U.S. politics at all. I've been tied up with catching stuff from the UN General Assembly all week, so I've been watching everybody else's politics. But I caught this, and I think the reason Cruz finally decided to endorse Trump is because he did make the pledge earlier in the primary, and I feel that he's a man of his word for the most part, and that he didn't want to go back on his word. And so that's why he did it.
Yeah, I don't necessarily buy that though, because if he was worried about keeping his word, he would have done it at the RNC. Now, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm jaded, but let me give you my honest take on the fact that he decided, well after the storm had passed, all of a sudden decide to endorse Trump. Look, I get it. On some level, this is probably pressure from his donors. I understand that part. But let me tell you where my little deep, dark soul takes this whole thing. I think what he saw, because of the outrage and the outright contempt for both Trump and Hillary Clinton, I think he saw a fundraising opportunity. So he agreed to go to the RNC, he agreed to stand up, he agreed to play politics in front of everybody there and make it seem like he was someone who was going to stand for his principles no matter what. And all of a sudden you had all these people that had never donated to campaigns before seriously looking at Ted Cruz and throwing him $5, $10, $15 a lot like they were doing for Bernie Sanders. And I honestly think in some way that was exactly what his plan was. And then when he had worked that to the best of his ability and realized he didn't really have any other choice at this point because, his career was done if he didn't endorse. And they made that really clear. But I have a problem with that. And I'm going to tell... Actually, you don't even know this yet, Jess, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you this because I know you watch Facebook every once in a while. And I know everybody saw about a month and a half ago when I had pointed out that I was kind of stoked because I had been reached out to by a syndication group that was talking about taking America off the rails and helping me get it to the next level. Well, during the conversation, and I'm not going to mention any names because I'm not that kind of guy, But during the conversation, one of the things that kept coming up was how much they liked the show, how much they liked the content, how impressed they were with the things that I had done with it up to this point. But they kept asking me as a conservative why I wouldn't switch and start talking positively about Trump. Eventually, the deal fell apart because I wouldn't switch and I wouldn't talk about Trump. So we're talking about people that were offering to hand me money, help me find sponsors. All I had to do was throw in with Trump. I could be probably doing this full-time right now and making money, but I couldn't look myself in the mirror and do it. So the deal fell through. So that's why I'm angry with Cruz, because don't make it look like you've got principles until it's time to actually stand up and then fold. That makes no sense to me.
Yeah, you're right. I watched him at the RNC.
Hang on, guys. We're both talking over each other. Hang on. Let's let Jess, since she called in, let's let her have a minute, and then we'll move on.
As you know, I don't live where I vote, right, Rick? I vote in one area and live halfway across the country.
I understand.
Sometimes that's happening around the world. So I've actually already cast my vote. Now, I'm not going to explicitly say who I did or did not vote for, but I am going to say never Trump, never Hillary. And since you know where I'm registered, you know exactly what the rest of that story is.
Yes, I know where you're registered, so I understand who you voted for.
Because the state I'm registered in doesn't accept write-ins, or I would have had more choices. But I might as well let the cat out of the bag. I'm registered in Oklahoma just like Rick is. And so I had 3 choices on the ballot. Trump, I couldn't do it. Hillary, really couldn't do it. Or Gary Johnson. Don't really agree with him, but I decided after weighing the choices and weighing the options, as limited as what I had, that I could at least cast the vote, even though Oklahoma is going to go red. Let's just face it. Oklahoma will go red. And so I decided that I would vote for Gary Johnson, the Libertarian. If nothing else, my vote may help future voters in Oklahoma have more than 2 choices on the ballot, because that's how it used to be.
And that's where I am today as well, folks, because I don't align with Trump. I definitely don't align with Hillary, and in most cases, I don't even align with Gary Johnson. But the simple fact of the matter is my state, as she was just talking about, has very arcane voting laws. So we're actually working on trying to change that, and that means that in order to hopefully keep the Libertarians on the ballot, they have to carry at least 15% of the vote. I don't know if they're going to get there. I think with somebody like Austin Peterson, they probably could have. But with Gary Johnson, I don't think it's going to happen. I know plenty of people. I know somebody that's been libertarian for as long as I've known him, who ripped his Gary Johnson bumper sticker off his car as soon as he heard him start talking about the carbon tax and his vice presidential candidate talking about the no-fly list becoming the no-buy list. He's like, nope, I'm done. I'm out. I've been fighting for these people for forever. Heck, he used to be the state chair of the Oklahoma Libertarian Party, and he's like, oh, I'm out. I can't do it. I'm not voting for the guy. That's too big of a deal for me. So for me, it's still a lesser of 3 evils option, but at least hopefully if we get enough people pulling for Johnson, maybe Oklahoma will have another choice in the future, so maybe we can finally start trying to fix this mess instead of continuing to think the 2-party system is going to be the only thing that saves us, when in reality it's what's been destroying us. But hey, what do I know?
Okay, now what were you saying, Dan?
Well, I was just saying, I mean, I sat there and I watched Ted Cruz at the RNC, and I watched him, and I wasn't a Cruz supporter, but I watched him give that speech and say, vote your conscience. And I was like, thank you. Thank you for being at the RNC and saying that. And that's what I'm doing, and that's what I've always done my whole life. And now he's just Trump. It really, like Rick said, it just really kind of upset me today. I'm not a huge Cruz supporter. But I loved what he said. And to me, what he said means absolutely nothing now. I mean, it means something, but it doesn't mean anything to me that he said it. It really doesn't. I mean, if you're just going to go with your donors, everything else, I mean, to me, he just became establishment today like everybody else. To me, I mean, I was a Rubio supporter. To me, Rubio right now should be sitting back, pointing his finger at him and laughing, because Rubio hasn't endorsed Trump like Cruz is doing. Rubio just kind of said, well, I guess I just got to do it, whatever. Trump's kind of coming out like, yep, it's just, this is it. This is the way we need to go. We need to beat Hillary. I mean, Rubio really didn't want to do it, and I got a lot of heat when Rubio did it. It's the 2016 sucks. That's what I'll say. I'll just leave it at
SMOD 2016. If I could write it in, I would, just on principle.
I'd
I can write it in.
to write it if I could, but where's the reset button? Somebody please come up with a reset button? One that actually works, unlike the one Hillary gave to Putin?
Can we find the DeLorean from Back to the Future, get it up to 88 mile an hour? That might work.
Yeah, I'd be willing to try that too, Rick. Can we, knock Trump out of the election in the primaries? I wouldn't have cared if he got a couple of rounds of debates and loudmouthed off through the first couple and then got squashed like a bug. Okay, it would have been cute and amusing. But at this point in the race, he's flat out dangerous.
They both are.
Well, no kidding. Would you rather have cyanide or plutonium pellets? Take your pick.
Can I choose a bologna sandwich?
Sorry. I'll give you a bologna sandwich laced with polonium.
No, that's all right. I'll pass.
So, like I
Yeah,
said,
it's a dumpster fire. I mean, we say it really truly is. I mean, literally the two worst candidates in the history of presidential elections in this country are running against each other. The two absolute worst candidates. The two that, I mean, honestly, Lindsey Graham would be killing Hillary right now. Lindsey freaking Graham would be killing Hillary right now. I would take Lindsey Graham. I would take Lindsey Graham.
Can you imagine having to pull the lever for Lindsey Graham, though? I just don't. I would. I don't think I could do it.
Pull the lever for Lindsey Graham before I. Well,
I mean,
you know me. I'm a libertarian. I would pull the lever for Lindsey Graham before I pull the lever for Gary Johnson.
Don't ever say the word lever and Johnson in the same sentence again. Just saying. Reminds me of that hashtag I kept getting hit with last 3 weeks. Feel the Johnson. Like, you guys need a better hashtag.
I used to post the Feel the Johnson memes all the time. I mean, but then he's since 4 years ago, he's gone so far left. I liked him 4 years ago. I did. He was actually a Republican 4 years ago running on the Libertarian ticket.
Yeah, well, he's now, and I'm not sure what, but he seems to think carbon tax is a good idea, which is kind of crazy to me. But heck, even Trump came out not too long ago and said that we needed to take a more serious look at climate change. So I guess that's just kind of becoming the inevitable thing too. You know, it's interesting because another thing that this Cruz thing taught me today is, you know, much like Bernie Sanders kept saying that the only reason he was really there because he knew in his heart he probably couldn't win, and then he started doing fairly well against her, so he started thinking maybe he could. But in the beginning, when he was talking to people about it, he's like, look, I'm under no illusions that I'm actually going to win the White House, but I'm here to change the face of politics forever. And he did that because now both major ticket politicians are using a lot of his same ideas. Hillary's gotten on board with the free college stuff. Trump has taken his child care plan, modified it a little bit, put a supposed slightly Republican spin on it, now it's no longer socialism. But what this election cycle has taught me as well is now Donald Trump has forever changed the face of politics in this country. Because now it will no longer be unacceptable to go after a candidate's family. It will no longer be unacceptable to tell people bald-faced lies to their face. Up until now, politicians have had a really big track record of stretching the truth. Having just enough truth in there where if you really tried to call them on it, they weren't necessarily being dishonest, they were just embellishing in a lot of ways. Donald Trump doesn't just embellish. He makes up his reality as he goes along, and he's a half a breath away from becoming the president of the United States. So, I mean, who are we going to put in office, a career criminal or a pathological liar? And you pick which one I'm talking about, because they're both kind of the same.
Well, and you brought up Bernie Sanders.
Hang on. Jess, what were you saying?
Can I vote for my cat instead?
Well, I think you...
Place their meetings and wouldn't stuff anything up.
Well, I mean, you might be able to. Don't you have, like, some sort of a parody account where your cat's like a politician or something?
Yeah, I do.
But, Rick, you brought up Bernie Sanders. I mean, and though I didn't agree with pretty much anything he said, I had a lot of respect for him. I really think his message would have been better had he just stuck with his guns and not gotten 100% behind Hillary. I respected him for standing on what he believed. Not that I believed in what he believed, but I respected him. He pulled it earlier, but he pulled exactly what Ted Cruz pulled today. He did the same thing. I lost respect for him. I had respect for him because he stood there and he believed in what he was saying, and now I don't believe he believed in what he was saying.
No, exactly. But that's the thing. At the end of the day, and it's just like something I put out on Twitter right before we went on the air. Look, everybody keeps talking about how these movements need leaders. Conservatism needs leaders. For those that are leaning more socialist, they feel like the socialistic movement needs leaders. Look, conservatism or whatever other belief system you choose to espouse doesn't necessarily need leaders. What it needs is all of us that adhere to those values to remember that principles actually used to matter and they need to matter again. Because what today showed me was Ted Cruz is no more principled than anyone else. Because at the end of the day, he fell in line, took his licks from the party, and now he keeps on ticking as a Republican. Okay, that's fine, that's great. But here's the thing. Everybody keeps telling me, well, Ted Cruz is still going to be principled. Ted Cruz is still going to fight for us because Ted Cruz is a man of the people. Does anybody remember when they used to say the same thing about John McCain? And look where he is now. Ted Cruz took his first steps to becoming the next John McCain. Because there was a time when people talked about John McCain the same way they talked about Ted Cruz up until today. And you mark my words, in a few years from now, they're going to be talking about Ted Cruz the same way they talk about John McCain now. Because he proved to the GOP that he was a whipping boy and that they could control him. And that's exactly what he did today. He lost his standing within the party, he bowed, he kissed the ring, and now they know they've got him. So watch, they're all going to fall in love with him again. All these people that hated him for so long because he wouldn't bow, he wouldn't break, and he wouldn't go along with party politics when it really mattered, they're going to love him now because they know they've got him right where they want him. And he's going to be the next John McCain within the next 10, 15 years. I guarantee it. That is, of course, provided we're still here.
Yeah, and let me... And I do want to. I want to give you a shout. I said I'd never do this, but I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Jay. She came out today. She was an ardent Cruz supporter, and she had a tweet today that it almost broke my heart. But she literally had a tweet, and she just said, "All right, basically, I've given up on you, sweetheart. You're done." And she hasn't been the ardent, like, attack everybody else because you don't like Cruz or anything, but she's always loved Cruz. And I want to give her a shout out because today she said, you know what, that's it. She basically put out a tweet and said, "Honey, lose my digits." And I'm seeing that he's let down a lot of people today. He really let down a lot of people today.
All right, Jess, you get the last word before we take a break. We're going to extend the show probably by about 10 or 15 minutes, so we're going to let Jess wrap up this segment, then take a break. We'll be right back to wrap up the show.
I guess I have somewhat of an altruistic view at things, and I was thinking that maybe Cruz just finally got over the fact that Trump essentially lied about his family, his father, and insulted his wife and children, which I agree is absolutely reprehensible. My opinion on children of politicians, if they are under 18 and are not on the stage and not spouting opinions, they are off limits. If they are a spouse on the stage and they start talking for the candidate, that puts them in game as far as what they're saying and maybe even their delivery. However, you never personally attack anyone. Period. I have people that I interview routinely for my shows. In fact, I had an interview tonight with a terrorism expert that'll air on Saturday Slowdown. And, he was like, okay, well, I think we have some different views on things. And I'm like, no, don't worry about it. I don't believe in gotcha questions. I may question where you came up with this, and you're the far more knowledgeable person in these areas than I am. But I don't believe in attacking people for any. Personal attacks are off limits. I will debate your policies. I will debate your point of view. I will ask you why you feel the way you feel. But I will never call you names or put you down for what you believe.
Good rule of thumb. All right, folks, we're going to take another really quick break. This should actually be the top of the hour where we're normally ending things, but we're going to go ahead and extend things for a few minutes just to get one more segment in and kind of round things out. Don't forget, the phone lines are still open. If you want to give us a call, go check out my Twitter. It's all over there. I'll give it out again when we come back from break. I just don't have it in front of me right now. You are listening to the Robinson and Wright Show right here live on KLNRradio.com. What?
Don't forget the special on Monday.
Well, I was going to talk about that when I got back. Anyway, we are going to do something new here on the station. So on Monday night, what we're going to have happen is our normal, regularly scheduled program will be running on the primary server. We're going to have a secondary server where we're also going to be streaming the debate. So you can actually flip back and forth between the two. You can catch out the live shows that are going on one channel. You can check out the debate on the other. And when the debate is over, we're actually going to have a roundtable edition where we're going to have a lot of the hosts and guests from KLRN that hang out all the time with you are going to be all in one place, and we're all going to be giving our opinions about the debates. That is going to be anchored by yours truly and the lady on the phone right now, Miss Jessica Sanders, and of course we'll have Dan there. I do believe we've already confirmed that Jen is going to be there, and also one of my recurring guests, Bill O'Keefe, is going to be there. The list may grow just a little bit longer. I'm still waiting to hear back to find out if Bryce or any of the younger crew want to chime in as well. But we're going to take a really quick break. When we come back, we're going to round out the show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Individuals and businesses with tax problems, listen carefully. Do you feel like you're losing control over your finances? If you owe over $10,000 in back taxes or have unfiled tax returns, we can help you take back control. The IRS is the largest and most aggressive collection agency in the world, and they can seize your bank account, garnish your paycheck, close your business, and file criminal charges. Take control of your tax problems now by calling the experts at Tax Mediation Services and take advantage of the Fresh Start program and new laws that may allow us to negotiate a settlement for the lowest amount possible. Our team of tax attorneys and enrolled agents can stop collections and get you protected so you can take control of your financial future. Tax Mediation Services is accredited by the Better Business Bureau. Call now for a free case review and a price protection guaranteed quote.
Call Tax Mediation Services now at 800-610-9050. That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it, there to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
All right, folks, we are back. We are live. We're into the extended segment of the show. Here in just a few minutes, we'll get back to regularly scheduled programming, which should be the Rhino Report kicking off as soon as this one ends. But I wanted to take just a second and kind of do a little bit of a wrap-up in case we had anybody, because I know there were several people that had talked about wanting to call in, but I guess something must have come up. So I just wanted to extend things out just a little bit, give them a chance to talk a little more in case they had any opinions on it. And again, look, I understand with Cruz on one level exactly why he did what he did. But what upsets me is he did the exact same thing that I had the opportunity to do. I could have gone in with this syndication company that was seriously looking at the show. They were offering to invest money. They were offering to help me find sponsors. They already have a list of stations they were going to be putting the show on, and all I had to do was go Trump. Those of you who have listened for a very long time know how much I want to leave the day job and everything else that I do behind and do the writing and the radio full time. I was literally looking at an opportunity to do that and told them no. Not because it's not what I want to do, not because I didn't start looking at the dollar signs and everything else they were putting in front of me and saying, look, this is really something that I could do for a living until it dries up and then I could just retire. But it was because it would have made me become something that I'm not. Look, no one is perfect. I'm not perfect. I've done things in my past that I'm not comfortable with, and everybody has moments in their past that they wish they could take back. So I'm not trying to tell you that I'm standing up as this paragon of virtue. What I'm trying to tell you, though, is principles have to still matter somewhere. Yes, I could be working from a studio and making money and writing articles and making all this money, all if I would have done this one thing, which is basically give up a part of me to be able to do it. But I still would have had to look at my family every day, and I would have been, well, you guys are taken care of. but I really am not enjoying what I'm doing anymore to get you here because now I'm having to tell people things I don't believe in. Look, I don't care if this ever makes me a dime, and the simple fact of the matter is it already has made me a dime. It's actually made me several dimes. It's not making the kind of money that I was hoping it was going to make 7 years ago when I started it, but it does make me money. The simple fact of the matter is, though, I don't care how much money it makes me if I have to sell my soul to get to the point where I'm making money. And in my strict view of it, that's exactly what Cruz did today. He sold his soul to remain a part of the GOP. And what irritates me most about this move is if he would have remained true to his principles, even if Reince Priebus had kept his word and excommunicated Ted Cruz from the party, there would have been a lot of people that would have still stood with him. And there are several of us that are looking at trying to form new parties. And I know of at least 3 groups that are all in the works of trying to figure out ways to make a home for conservatism. I actually happen to be a part of one of them. So does Dan. So he would have had somewhere to land if he would have simply stood on his principles. And what upsets me the most about all of this is if you listen to the chatter behind the scenes, he already knows his career's done. He knew his career was done no matter which way he went. He probably might have gotten one more term in the Senate from Texas only because they were still pretty well behind him. I know a lot of folks in Texas right now that are still behind him. But at the same time, I bet you his percentage points have dropped drastically today for doing what he's done. And look, I understand, again, that he made a choice. And I'm not going to say whether he made the right choice for him or the wrong choice for him. But I'm telling you, for me personally, it was the wrong choice. Because I faced the same type of crossroads. And I had to choose. And I chose to be able to look myself in the mirror, look at my family every day, and say, even if nothing else comes from this, I'm standing and fighting for what I believe, not caving just to get from point A to point B. And that's what Cruz did today. He caved to try to hold on to his political career. At what cost, though?
Exactly. And, I mean, kind of where I stand. I left the Republican Party 13 years ago. I came back for this election. I supported Scott Walker first, but then I really latched on to Marco Rubio. I supported him monetarily. I went to rallies. I met him. Everything else. It came time to vote in North Carolina. Rubio didn't stand a chance. But I came back to the Republican Party for this election to beat Hillary Clinton. I voted for Cruz in my primary because he stood a chance against Trump in the primary. I didn't vote for the guy that I went to rallies and supported and was vocal about on social media and everything else and gave money to because of my principles. That I actually voted against myself. And now I sit here and watch the guy I voted for against my principles, and the guy that I loved his speech at the RNC. Now he's just basically said, screw you. It doesn't mean anything because I need to keep my career. What you did means nothing because I need to keep my career. I'm done.
And
it's over. It's over. I mean, I've already taken the time to re-register as an independent. I had an R on next to my name for 9 months, and it's done.
Well, I had an L next to my name for about 6 so far. I think it's about done too, though. To be honest, I'm not sure.
I was a libertarian all that time, but I kept myself registered as an independent. I was an independent. I couldn't. There was too much disarray in the Libertarian Party too, which again we saw this year. You know, I actually was kind of riding the fence between Republican and Libertarian when Austin Peterson came on the scene. Because I was like, okay, well, now I've got guys that I like in the Republican Party and guys that I like in the Libertarian Party, but I know with these people in the Republican Party, there's no chance Hillary can win this election. And what happened?
What happened is we got hosed.
Got hosed.
That's what happened. You know, and there's one other aspect of this that I guess completely just floors me. Because Ted Cruz was one of the loudest people to point out the fringe group that attached themselves to Donald Trump. And Ted Cruz just gave that same group legitimacy today.
He absolutely did. And you mean the group that tells me that I'm going to get gassed and hung because I won't support Trump?
Either get on board the train or get ready for the boxcar. How many times have I been told that one?
Right. Exactly.
But, you know, God forbid somebody...
Basically, he's basically thrown his endorsement to the fascist wing of the Trump supporters.
I mean, I just don't get it because, look, everything else aside, taking the parallel away from the fact that around the time that Trump really got popular, I had a syndication group looking at me and basically was given a choice, etc. But take all of that away for a second. If Donald Trump had said what he said about my dad, there is no way in hell I would ever endorse that man. I would look straight at everybody in the Republican Party that's telling me you can either endorse this man or you can leave, and I would flip them the double California howdy and say deuces, because I'm out, because I'm not going to sit here in a party that makes me endorse a man that said my father was somehow responsible for the JFK assassination. How is that? How do you reconcile that? How do you get past that? How do you go, well, it's just politics and he didn't really mean it? No, he meant it. He meant it.
Ted Cruz's dad is not my dad, and John McCain is not my dad. And what he said about John McCain solidified exactly where I am right now. I will never support, never vote for, and if he becomes president, will not recognize him as my president after John McCain. And I'm not a John McCain fan. But you know what I am a fan of? I'm a fan of the fact that John McCain is a patriot. And John McCain went to war. And John McCain spent time in a prison camp and got beat. And he has been physically disabled because of his imprisonment. And what did Donald Trump say about him? He said, basically that John McCain was a loser because he got caught. That is who we want for president of the United States? That a veteran who spent time in a prison camp for going to fight for his country was a loser because he got caught. That's who I want. That's who I want for my president. Everybody, I'm not going to say everybody that wants Trump believes that, but the people that call me an idiot for saying I won't vote for Trump because of that, what am I supposed to think of them? Because they're the same ones that are telling me that I'm going to get into the boxcar or I'm going to get strung over the wall because I'm a traitor.
You know, and
I support John McCain.
Well, no, and you know, here's the thing. I've again never in my life told anybody how to vote, and I'm not going to start now. But one of the things that disturbs me, and when you say this, when I say this, you're gonna know who I'm talking about. We have lots of people that we know that are reluctant Trump supporters, but they've seen the things that those of us that have stood up against it and said, no, there's no way, it's not going to happen. They've seen what we've gone through. So in some ways, no, I don't mind the fact that they're basically looking at it and saying, look, in my estimation, he's the best choice. I'm not sure how their logic got them there. But what does hurt a little bit is them watching everything that we've gone through and them still voting for the guy when in some ways they have to understand that by voting for that man, they're legitimizing the very things that they say they don't want this party to stand for. The very things that we've been telling people for years it didn't stand for are now part and parcel of the Republican Party. Everybody used to talk about how the racists really were the Democratic Party. Well, guess what? That's not true anymore. Everybody used to talk about how everybody on the other side of the argument used to talk about how in 1960-something, when the Civil Rights Movement passed, the party switched places. And all of us that were Republicans were looking at them like they were nuts, going, what do you mean the party switched places? We're not a bunch of racists. We're not the rednecks you guys portray us to be. But guess what? They are now. And they ran to it willingly with open arms. And at this point, look, you can like what I'm about to say. You can hate what I'm about to say. I don't care if you are a dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporter or you're somebody that's pulling lever for him because you don't feel like you've got a choice. You need to come to terms with the fact that you are legitimizing the biggest bunch of hateful people on the planet and making them feel like they have a voice, because that's what they're going to get with Trump. And that's why, in my estimation, he needs to be stopped at almost all costs. I'm not telling anybody to vote for Hillary, because I myself am not going to be voting for Hillary. But even those of you that are reluctant Trump voters because you feel like you don't have any other options, I'm asking you to look in the mirror and look at yourself and ask yourself, can you stand a world where you have given legitimacy to the alt-right? Because if he becomes president, that will be exactly what happens. The Democratic Party has already given legitimacy to Black Lives Matter. We're gonna have to spend the next 20 years undoing that mess. If we give legitimacy to the alt-right movement, we're gonna have a race war within the next 10 years, if not sooner.
Yeah, and that's my whole thing is, and you've seen me and heard me say this. The thing that scares me the most about Trump is the fact that if he does get elected, and he's already done this, it's already happened, but it will be solidified even more. If he screws it up, we won't see anything in the way of conservatism for 20 years if we're lucky. 20 years if we're lucky. Because even everybody that has opposed Trump, it doesn't matter, because the left is just going to bunch us all together. We're all the same thing. We're not. That's where you and I, and we've talked about this, and we know what we've worked on. The two-party system is done, but can we really see the two-party system done? It has to be done, because it's not a two-party system anymore. It's the good old boys in Washington, and then it's a bunch of us ragtags on the outside going, this is bullshit. And that's how I feel about it. And we're all going to get lumped in together, no matter what. Conservatism, I don't even like using the word anymore. I don't even like calling myself a conservative. Because if you call yourself a conservative, as far as the left is concerned, you're a racist alt-right hater. That's what it's become. And it's going to be worse if he wins. It's going to be 40 years of him, and then 20 to 24 years of the left running everything.
Or it could even be worse. I actually envision under Trump that within 4 to 8 years the parties will merge. I don't think there will be a two-party system anymore, because there already really is no difference between the two. I think it will get to the point where...
You have right-wing socialism and left-wing socialism running right now. That's what's running for president. It's all socialism.
Yeah. I mean, it pretty much is. Okay, so one last thing real quick that I just noticed that came across my timeline, because it goes back to the first story we were talking about before we changed over to Cruz. I'm seeing a report from a paper called The Christian Times. Apparently there was a report that Keith Lamont Scott, the gentleman who was just shot in in, I'm getting tired. What state do you live in again, Dan?
North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. There we go. I'm really starting to get tired, folks. I am so sorry. Apparently, there is a report from his criminal record that indicates he had shot a handgun at Texas officers in 2005.
Imagine that.
Now, as a former law buff and guy that at some point thought he was going to be an attorney and kind of went the entire different direction, I understand prior bad acts, if he was on trial right now, wouldn't be considered admissible. So I understand that. But it still goes to character and intent. And in my opinion, it brings a whole new direction to the wife or the girlfriend or whoever was in the car screaming, "No, Keith, don't do it. Don't do it, Keith." Because they know he'd already done it once before. So
there's plenty of evidence in the case, and I'm the whole thing that Black Lives Matter and everything else and every one of these shootings brings up. To me, I'm like, let's sit back and wait for the evidence. I want to see the evidence. I'm not going to sit here and say it was justified. I'm not going to sit here and say it was unjustified. I want to see the evidence. It's immediate. If a person of color is shot by a cop, it doesn't matter. It's over. That it was racist. There's no way that they did anything wrong. And if it's a bad shooting, I'm the first one to say that was a bad shooting. That cop should not have done that. I'm the first one to say it. But if I want to see the evidence, I want to know what exactly happened. To me, the video evidence today shows exactly what happened. They told him, I believe it was said 28 times, put the gun down. 28 times. Even if it wasn't a gun and it was something they perceived to be a gun, they should not have had to say it 28 times. The end.
Pretty much.
If it's a perceived threat, that cop wants to go home to his wife and kids at the end of the day. What's he supposed to do? Stand there and go, okay, show me what you got. I'm going to put my gun in my holster. Show me what you got. Is that how he's supposed to do it? I mean, they're human too. They think they act like cops are robots. They're not. They're human. They want to go home to their family at the end of the night. Comply. Put down whatever it is you have in your hand. Get out of the car. Put your hands behind your head. If you want to say it's police harassment at that point, say it's police harassment. Guess what? You're still alive.
Go get an attorney. But
exactly.
You brought up a point nobody's talking about. The simple fact of the matter is he had something in his hand. The cops perceived it to be a weapon. At that point, whether it's a weapon or not, when the cop tells you to put it down, frickin' put it down. I mean, how is that not common sense? It's not, well, officer, look, it's not a gun, and you hold it up even higher, then you get shot because they think it's a gun and you're about to point it at them. If it's not a gun, then you set it down. And then after everything is said and done, when they've done their searches and they've got you in custody or whatever else it was they were going to wind up doing, depending on the situation, then you say, look, officer, I want to show you that. See that right there in the seat? That's what I had in my hand. That's a gun. That's not a gun. That's a book. And it would have been a completely different scenario if he would have just followed the instructions. And I don't understand why no one is talking about that. Because you said it. They had to tell him 28 times to put whatever it was that was in his hand down. If he would have done it on time one, it would have been an entirely different scenario. And he would still be here today. And if it was a book and he was being harassed, he would have a criminal case. Or a civil case for being harassed.
Exactly.
But he doesn't. Because he didn't follow the instructions of the police officers. And that's another thing, and then we really do got to get out of here. But that's another thing that drives me crazy, because you keep hearing all these things over and over again about these black people. They're like, well, I have to have these talks with my children and tell them how they need to act around the police because I don't want my children to get shot. Let me clue you in, folks. White people have those same damn conversations with our children about cops. It's not because we're afraid they're going to get shot. It's because cops are in a position of authority. And every once in a while, if you do something too crazy, they don't have a choice but to react. That's exactly what happened in Ferguson. There was a man who had pushed around his mom probably for the last 4 or 5 years because he was probably two head taller than she was. And he didn't have any discipline at home because she couldn't do it. So he would go out into the world and do the same things that he did at home, rough up store owners, take what he wanted, and then he met somebody who wouldn't back down because he couldn't, because it was his job not to back down, and now he's dead. So if you want my honest opinion as to who needs to be blamed for all of these things and all of these shootings and all of this black on black crime and everything else that's going on, it's no different than when I tell all these people that are always talking about how we need to put prayer back in schools and it'll make everything better. No, you need to put prayer back in your home. That's what makes things better. If you want to know why our country is as screwed up as it is right now, it's because we don't have people that want to take the time to be parents anymore. You want to know why the dude in Ferguson died and why his parents couldn't deal with it? Because in the end of the day, when it happened, they knew in their heart it was their fault. You want to know why this man's family is upset that he's dead right now? Because at the end of the day, they knew it was their fault because they didn't teach him that he had to respect authority. They taught him that those type of things don't matter. They taught him that he was special. They taught him that he was different, and because he was oppressed, he shouldn't have to listen to a white man or even a black man wearing a white man's uniform. And I've seen this play out time and time and time again. There are no special circumstances. You have no choice but to respect authority. If you cannot do that and cannot follow simple commands in a high-stress situation, you are going to wind up getting yourself or someone else killed. So if you think you're so special that you don't have to follow the commands of the police, do yourself a favor, lock yourself in your apartment, have your food delivered, and don't come out again.
Exactly. I was gonna say, Rick, my father was a cop in the Air Force. And I was taught, especially once I started driving, my dad told me, you get pulled over, you get into any kind of anything with the police, you get pulled over, you put your hands on the steering wheel, you listen to everything that police officer says, and you say yes, sir, or no, sir. You give him what he needs. You comply. If he ever asks you to get out of the car, you get out of the car. You get out of the car with your hands out of your pockets. And if he asks you to turn around, you turn around. If he asks you to put your hands on the car, you put your hands on the car. If he asks you to put your hands behind your back, you put your hands behind your back. If he asks you if you have anything on you that you shouldn't, you tell him yes or no. That's what my dad taught me. And that's what I would do if I was pulled over. That's just the way you do it. These men have a job, and their job is to make sure that everybody is living within the law. And if you're not living within the law, it seems that you don't comply. I mean, I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case in this case. He was told 28 times to drop the gun. Whether what he had in his hands was a gun or not, I don't know. Sure looks like it's sitting on the ground. But if you just do what the police officer asks you to do, and it's within his rights to ask you to do it, everything will be fine. It really will. And there's people out there say, well, you're white, so everything will be fine. No. If you get out and do everything you're asked to do, everything will be fine. 99.9999999% of the time.
And even if it's not...
There's stuff that goes sideways with white people, too. It does. Stuff goes or two. It happens.
But here's the thing, though. If you're complying, even if something goes sideways, you're still most likely going to be alive at the end of whatever goes sideways, and then you have legal recourse. But if you act like an idiot, then you become a stain on the sidewalk, and that's just as blunt as I can put it. All right, at this point, we have got to go because my son's going to be calling here in a few minutes, and I got to shut things down. This has been Robinson and Wright. We have been live with you right here on KLNRradio.com. Don't forget to tune in Monday night. Now, Monday night, you'll have a couple of different choices. We're going to have our regular live stream going for folks like Daniel Stafford and everybody else that typically runs, and then we will also have the debate streaming on a special event channel that we have set up. And then after the debate, we're going to have a roundtable with myself, Dan, Jessica Sanders. We're also going to have Bill O'Keefe, and Jen from my other co-host is going to be with us. And I'm still trying to see if I can narrow down maybe either Jackson Richmond or Bryce Robbins to sit in with us as well, because I'd kind of like to get a bit of a younger perspective. Maybe if I can get both of them, that would even be better, because Bryce is more liberal. Jackson's more conservative, so that should be even more entertaining. But we have got to get out of here. So, and also as a reminder, Finding Common Ground and Opinion Nation will be reruns tomorrow. Bryce has a college debate thing going on, and we didn't find out about it in time to get anything pre-recorded. So we're going to run some older shows, some classics. It'll be fun. It'll be great. And I'll be back with you Monday morning, and then pulling a double. I'll be on with you pretty late Monday night after the debate. We're out. Have a good night, folks. And actually, before I forget, Dan, why don't you remind folks where they can interact with you when you're not on the air with me?
They can find me on Twitter at 1911G.
Did I lose you, or was that all you said?
No, that's all I said.
Okay, just checking. That it was kind of abrupt, so I thought maybe I'd lost you. All right, folks, and as usual, if you choose to, you can interact with me on Twitter at AOTR_host. There are a ton of other ways, but I really don't have time to go into those today. And as a reminder, this show is now available on iTunes, the Google Music Play Store, and something else that we got put on that I can't even remember the name of right now. But pretty much, if you can. Yeah, Pocket Cast, that's what it was. Pretty much, if you can't find the show, it's because you're not looking. So go look for it. Pick your favorite way to listen to it. It'll be great. We're out, folks. Have a good night.